The storm had crept in from the sunrise sea like a sullen cat, its paws muffling the night with sheets of warm rain that hissed against the hulls of 350 ships. Timber groaned and canvas snapped. Over the black water, lanterns winked gold and bronze, reflected in waves that rose and broke like 1,000 mailed shoulders. On the quarterdeck of the Lady Beleriand, Sir Tristan Rivers stood braced to the rail, the long feathers of his cloak plastered to plate and leather, his pale braid sodden against his cheek. Lightning revealed the shapes of the fleet for the blink of an eye. 4 hoard galleys from Lys, deep-keeled cog galleys, bought in Tyrosh, tall Myrish carracks, with crimson wyverns on their lantern boards. And then the dark swallowed all again. He listened for the drum beats that told of order, the shrill pipes echoing down from crows' nests, the curt shouts of captains trying to out-yell the wind. Each sudden flash carved the world into stark silhouettes. Masts like spears, rigging like the webs of spiteful gods, rain like a curtain of glass shards. Below, in the admiral's cabin, the boy called young Griff sat at a wide trestle table littered with charts. A single whale-oil lamp swung overhead, tracing crazy loops of light across parchment coasts and painted compass roses. His hair, dyed a muddy blue on shipboard to throw the eyes of spies, had begun to grow out again at the roots, pale as moonlit straw. He leaned forward, elbows planted, and watched the black stick of Sir Raleigh Duckfield's finger sweep across the map. "Duck. Here," the duck muttered, tapping the stormlands. "Griffin's Roost is close enough for Connington's whelp to retake by spear point. If we land by Blackhaven, the Dornish border is within a day's march for supply runs. A hedge of red mountains at our back, a sea of foes in front. I've eaten worse odds." John Connington, Lord of Griffin's Roost, stood at the boy's shoulder, gaunt face pinched by years of exile and a sickness he hid with every breath. He said nothing, but his hand slipped onto Aegon's shoulder. The first time tonight he had dared lay claim to that name out loud. Aegon Dawn. Not young Griff nor lad nor boy with dark hair. The hand tightened in silent promise. He would not fail the son he owed his life, his honor, his last strength. Across from them, the shaven head of Black Balak gleamed like wet obsidian. He stroked his forked beard, rings clacking. "Better the Princeport at Estermont, say I," he rumbled, voice deep as gravel. "Quiet cove. Woods to hide in. Your dragons can wait there for ravens to bring word how much blood is spilling between the lions and wolves. A wise admiral does not sail into a whirlpool." Aegon traced the coastline with his forefinger, feeling the paper crinkle. From Estermont you could march north to Storm's End or west toward King's Landing, depending on where fortune smiled. But fortune had rarely smiled on House Targaryen these past 17 years. He thought of tales John Connington had told him, of Robert's hammer smashing Aerys's armies, of Rhaegar dying on the trident with rubies glinting like spilled hearts, of Ilya's screams echoing through the ruins of his mind. He pressed his thumb to the place on the map where Storm's End brooded over the sea, a stronghold of stubborn men who still bent knee to Stannis Baratheon, or would if any Baratheon remained to rally them. The War of 5 Kings had torn the realm like a cook tearing bread from a loaf. There were crumbs everywhere, armies wandering leaderless, broken houses ripe for banners and bright promises. Sir Tristan rattled down the ladder with a splash of rainwater, pausing at the threshold. "Admiral says we are 2 hours from Cape Wrath if the wind holds. 3 if the gods turn cruel." "Oh, the gods have been cruel since the trident," Connington said. But Aegon did not miss the ghost of a smile behind the words. A cruel wind was still wind, and they had sails enough to tame it. At the table's far edge lay a sheaf of letters, each sealed in dark red wax. One was for Edric Storm, bastard of Robert, and by some whispers the true-blood Baratheon heir. Another for Davos Seaworth, smuggler knight, rumored executed, rumored escaped, rumored saint, no one could say. Others bore names Aegon knew only in half-remembered tales. Lords Caron, Penrose, Marjan, Tarth. Men whose castles studded the storm-lashed coast like granite teeth. Men whose hearts might still pound to oaths long forgotten by the high halls of King's Landing. Aegon rose, cautious of the roll beneath his boots. "Sir Tristan," he said, "pass the word. When we sight land, douse all lanterns. A red dawn will hide our sails. We make for the estermost shoals. The river's bastard cocked a brow. Estermost? Not Griffin's Roost. Not yet, Connington answered for him. My walls can wait. The realm must see a dragon before it learns to roar again. Nine? The ship lurched as though the sea herself took umbrage. Aegon steadied against the table. 5 kings at war, he mused. Joffrey dead. Tommen on a throne of steel and shadows. Stannis besieging Winter at the wall. Robb Stark's bones lost to traitor steel. Balon drowned by his own cliffs. And yet abroad there were whispers of a woman in Korth, painting the sky with dragon's fire. He wondered if Daenerys Targaryen still walked the world barefoot and unbowed, or if she had toppled empires already and marched toward Westeros on a tide of ashes. If she was alive, would she bend the knee to her nephew, or expect him to bend first? For tonight, he needed only the Golden Company and the dream of home to carry him. The lamp swung again, and with each sway his shadow stretched across the stormlands, small and slight, then enormous, devouring castles whole. He did not trust shadows. Varys had spoken of them often, the whispering spider who had spirited him away as an infant, and set Jon Connington upon a path of redemption. Shadows lie, Varys said, but they tell truths as well, in the shape of fear they carve from firelight. Outside, ropes creaked and sailors cursed the weight of wet hemp. The fleet crept on, hemming the coast too close for any sane captain. But Black Balak had sailed unsane courses half his life and dared wind and reef alike. The sellsword captains of the Golden Company, Peak and Flowers, Pine and Faring, Strickland the younger, old Harlan Hill, kept to their own decks, checking powder for crossbows, hammering dents from helms. For a score of years the company had carried exile in their coin purses, an old debt to a dead king. But debts grow interest with time. The men still spat when they named Sir Miles Toyne, lost beneath the Dothraki sabers, still whispered grayscale when they spoke of Blackheart, the Strickland who had led them homeward once before and failed. This war was a wager on a boy's claim and a prince's face, a dare flung at half a realm already reeling. All that remained was to see if anyone would pick up the dice. Rain eased. A hush crept over the decks, a hush broken only by the slap of waves and the caw of some lonely gull. Dawn, thin and pearly, seeped from the cloud bank ahead. The first mate of the Lady Balerion hailed the bow. "Land, sir," barely a knife gauge below the fog. Sir Tristan cupped hands to mouth. Orders rippled through the fleet. Lanterns winked out. Sails were reefed to half-draw. Oars slid silently into water. The Golden Company were practiced at invasion. 500 captains could list the ports they had taken, the towns they had torched, the gates they had forced for pay. But none could remember a landing where so much depended on something as small as breathing too loud. The shoals of Estermost were a labyrinth. Long rows of hidden sandbars, reachable only on a rising tide, ringed a bay so shallow one might walk half a mile with water no deeper than the knee, provided one knew the path. Black Balak claimed he knew it blindfolded. Aegon prayed he did. Ships slowed, hulls scraping silt. Ropes were tossed, anchors grumbled down. The sudden stillness felt like a held breath. Every creak of plank, every plash of water against hull seemed thunderous. Aegon followed Connington to the main hatch. Below, in the troop hold, row after row of spearmen knelt among bales of cloth and barrels of dried beef. They smelled of cedar oil and sweat, 50 different lands compressed into one long corridor. When the prince appeared, helms came off, one by one, heads bowing. No cheers. Silence served better than bravado. Some had never seen him unmasked. Rumors labeled him Blackfire by birth, or bastard by blood, or worse, a mummer's boy tutored to a part. Their eyes sought proof, and he had none to give but the steadiness of his step and the chill within his chest. At the forward ladder, a drummer waited, mallet poised over goatskin. Aegon shook his head. Not yet. We march quiet. The first feet to touch Westerosi sand belonged to half a dozen scouts armed with hooks and knives. They vanished among twisted pines as dawn blushed faintly over the sea. One by one the ships berthed rowing barges, flat-bottomed things named for crabs. Sandclaw, Pincher, Redshell, Pincer Prince. Men filed in, knee-deep, swords muzzled in boiled leather. Aegon took his place at the prow of Sandclaw beside Connington, cloak pinned high. His armor was new-forged from mirror-bright Valyrian steel gifted by the Lysine, stamped with three-headed dragons in garnet and jet. The steel felt weightless yet colder than the rain. He fought the urge to touch it, to test if it was real. When they scraped shore, Connington lifted the boy bodily onto the sand. Aegon stumbled but kept upright. The earth of home lay beneath his soles, gritty and damp, and he knelt to press a bare palm into it. Cool grains clung to his skin. He imagined them gold, melting between his fingers. A gull wheeled overhead, crying out in hunger or warning. He could not tell which. Behind him, the Golden Company spilled across the strand in ordered silence. Standard-bearers unfurled banners as thin mist parted on a fitful wind. Black Balak's forked beard parted in a grin as he planted the pole. A golden skull, iron sword clenched in teeth, above the proud words, "Beneath the gold, the bitter steel." Beside it rose a banner unfamiliar to Westerosi eyes. Sable dragon rampant, 3 heads crowned with pale silver flame. The arms devised by Jon Connington for the prince in hiding. No bugles, no blare of horns. Only the wet suck of tide and the ragged breathing of men who had sailed a lifetime for this moment. "Remember this land," Connington whispered. More to himself than to the prince. "Smell it. Mark it. It is yours by blood if we win and your grave if we fail." "Now." Aegon stared inland. Dark trees crowded a ridge, bowed by salt wind. Beyond them lay roads to homesteads and castles, to towns that barely remembered the name of Targaryen, save in nursery songs. His heart hammered so loud he feared the hills might echo it. Sudden shouts from the tree line snapped swords from sheaths. The scouts re-emerged, dragging a prisoner between them. A smallish man, cobbler by the look of him, clothes smeared with pitch and pine sap. ... He quaked under the press of steel at his back. Connington knelt in the sand, speaking soft. "Your name?" "Pater?" The man's teeth chattered. "Pater Sefton, if it please my lord." "From Half-Nail village yonder crest. Do you serve lord or levy?" "Haven't served no one since Lord Renly died, begging your pardon." "The lords quarrel and we patch boots for any man walks by with coin. 7 save us." Aegon stepped forward. The prisoner's gaze flitted to him, lingered. Blue dye laced his hair still, but in the pearl dawn you could see the pale roots bright as silver. The cobbler's eyes widened. Connington said, "What banners fly over Half-Nail?" "None, sir. Blue apple of House Conklin burned when the stag broke them. Town's near empty now. Some talk Lord Tarley's men march north. Some say Lord Rowan holds Bitterbridge for Queen Margaery. 7 spare us? I can't keep track." The prince glanced to Connington. "Bitterbridge. That is 6 days' ride if the roads are clear." Connington straightened. "And not 2 to Griffin's Roost." His voice trembled like a string held too tight. Aegon saw the longing warring with discipline in the older man's eyes. Griffin's Roost had stood in stranger hands for near 2 decades. The pull of hearth is a wound that never weeps yet never heals. He laid a hand on Connington's vambrace. "Not yet. First we find allies, then we fly." To the prisoner he said, "You saw nothing but fisherfolk come to net the shallows, Master Sefton. Speak of strangers, and we will find you first." The man swore a garbled oath, and fled as soon as the scouts loosed him. The silence he left felt heavier than the footsteps of 1,000 soldiers. Barge by barge, the company berthed itself upon the beach, shoving bundled spears upright like a forest of saplings. Archers strung dark yew bows, turning arrowheads in waxed cloth to keep them dry. Farther up the strand, horses were led snorting to drier ground and covered with lumpy cloth to hide their shape from spies at sea. Over all of it, the drizzle hung like a veil of pearl. They made camp without fires, driving stakes into sandy loam, rigging canvas low. Connington posted triple watches. Aegon walked among the men, speaking light words, fielding heavier questions. Some warriors looked on him as the dawn of old glories, others as a cipher. A few as a coin yet untouched by rust. Yet when he passed, they bowed or touched 2 fingers to helms. He felt their hope pounding against his ribs like caged birds. Night found him sleepless beneath swaying pine limbs. Root and rock pressed at his back, and wind whistled through branches like thin horns. He thought of Daron the young dragon, who had conquered Dorne at 16 and lost it at 17. He thought of Rhaegar, who had loved lyres and prophecy and died for a crown of roses. He wondered if courage came with Targaryen blood, or if it was hammered in a man one link at a time until the chain choked. The leaves above shivered, silvering under half-hidden stars. Connington approached, cloaked and hooded. "A rider returns. News you ought hear." They walked to a quiet dell, where a single brazier glowed like a felled star, shielded by a ring of scouts. The messenger knelt as they came near. Mud spattered his breeches to the thigh. "Lord Captain," he rasped, voice hoarse from the ride, saw torchlight at Haystack Hall. Orange lion on red blazoned above the gate. "Nay," Connington hissed. "Lannisters in the Stormlands?" "So it seems. Word says Lord Mathis Rowan marched for King's Landing days ago. Lord Tarley with him, carrying Queen Margaery north in chains for her trial." Aegon closed his eyes. If Tywin Lannister still lived, it would mean one thing: that it was his son now commanding the Red Country, made its own snake pit of perils. Casterly Rock's claws were long. Yet farther north Robb Stark's banners lay in tatters, the north bled white, and the riverlands burned. Connington's jaw set. The Storm Lords may rally to Lannister if they think the Tyrells are spent. "Then we show them something brighter than a lion," Aegon said. "We show them a dragon." He turned back toward the strand. Through low dunes, the sea glimmered, black as polished iron. He pictured a great banner there, white silk sewn with 3 red heads, mouths roaring flame. He pictured torches in 1,000 hands reflected in the wet sand. He pictured a roar carried on waves and wind, a name shouted for leagues. "Aegon!" Aegon ducked. Prince that was promised, or prince that was not. Whatever the prophecy, the realm needed a king who was not crowned by fear. That dawn he ordered a war council beneath a slant of canvas big enough to shelter 2 destriers. The captains gathered, Tristan Rivers still smelling of salt and tallow, Balak with his chain of copper coins clinking, Strickland the younger cautious as an old village dog, old Harlan Hill, shoulders stooped with years of mail. Each spoke in turn, weighing river fords against castle walls, counting grain sacks and smithies, guessing which lords would fold quickest. They argued 2 hours before the boy cut through. "We march inland in 3 columns," he declared, voice carrying across the soft hiss of rain. "Left flank to hold the coast road and keep our ships in supply. Center to strike Griffin's Roost." Connington stiffened. "But do not storm it. We ring it round and wait. Right flank toward Bitterbridge to learn if Rowan and Tarley are truly gone. Every hamlet we pass, we pay for provisions double in silver and leave parchments bearing my seal. They will call me false at first. Lies travel swifter than a king's word. But coin weighs heavier than rumor." "Nah." Strickland rubbed his clean-shorn chin. "And if we meet Lannister outrunners, we sheathe our swords if they parley and unsheathe if they spit. No torching fields, no rape, no plunder not paid. If we must fight, we fight straight and swift, then treat wounds on both sides. I would win hearts before battles if I may. If not, let us leave witnesses who live to tell of a dragon's mercy." The captains exchanged looks. Mercy was a coin sells word spent rarely. Yet there was iron under the words, a note neither pleading nor stern but certain. They nodded, some more grudging than others. The Golden Company had broken contracts before when gold outweighed oaths, but this boy offered more than coin. He offered a home they need never leave again. Beneath the gold, the bitter steel. Beneath the steel, a hunger older than exile. By midday they broke camp, marching beneath a sky gone pewter gray. Rain slicked helms and visors, beaded on kettle helms, coursed down the scales of blackened mail. Aegon rode astride a gray courser named Rainwind, gifted by a Volantine trader who claimed its grandsire had run the Rhoyne end to end in a single moon. He wore his armor openly now, dye rinsed from his hair. When small folk peeked from hut doors or cowered behind wagons, he greeted them in the tongue of the Reach. Soft vowels, broad R's, words slow and deliberate. Behind him banners fluttered, golden skull, triple dragon. Connington's griffin flew too, crimson lacquer glinting, talons bared. They met no soldiers that first day, only ragged pilgrims trudging south towards Storm's End, muttering of a red woman with shadow in her belly, of pale kings in the snow northward, of twin boys now crowned in the capital, though rumors could not choose which sat the throne. Aegon's men shared bread and broth, tended blisters, offered lifts in empty supply wagons. Word traveled with pilgrims faster than outriders. By dusk, they reached a wind-carved outcropping, half a league from the ruins of an old holdfast burned early in the war. They camped among toppled stones, the smell of char and history clinging like coal dust. Aegon wandered between fire pits, unnoticed in a plain cloak. He paused where archers knelt fletching arrows by lamplight. One, a tall woman with oiled braids, looked up. "Evening, lad. Got a flint?" He passed her his striker. Sparking steel lit her grin. "Give it a scritch," she said. "Tell me, true what they say, we're fighting for a dragon prince?" He considered the flame growing in the tinder. Would it matter if it were? Makes for a prettier song than fighting for coin. She fed the fire. "Pretty in my face, that's for certain." Laughter creased sun-leathered cheeks. Aegon crouched, warming hands. "If you sing of princes, sing too of the sellsword who lit her own fire while the world slept." She snorted. "Swords first, songs after. That's the way." He left her to the flame. The way, yes. Swords first. The Golden Company had sewn its standard to his cause, but swords alone did not hold kingdoms. Hearts, minds, fear, hope. These ruled longer than steel. He would need allies. He felt the thought like a blade tip. Varys. Or Tyrion Lannister. Men who played pieces on boards no soldier could read. But allies came with their own prices, garbed in debts and daggers. Rain eased. Stars winked uncertainly between ragged clouds. He found Connington at the command fire, maps spread across knees. "We skirt Griffin's roost at dawn," the Lord murmured. "Set watchers on the hills." Aegon knelt opposite. "Is it truly held by Sir Ronald Storm?" "So, my last word. Bastard half a brother to Robert. Dundee. Ugly as shale, cunning as a cat. Sword hand gone to rot in the last bout of pox. Men follow him out of pity more than fear. Men." Aegon traced the map's inky swirls. "Will he yield?" "Only to the grave. And I would send him there gladly if I thought the hill walls would fall quick." Connington rolled the parchment with a sigh. "We could starve him." Siege lines there. Fingers tapped valleys. "But every day we linger draws Lannister or Tyrell banners on the wind. Best to leave him boxed and move. And when we have half the Stormlands at our back, then we break his gate with thunder." Aegon nodded, though something in him twinged. He had known naught of sieges, save the tales told on stormy nights in cramped SOC inns, when filth-flecked soldiers boasted of famine and firepots raining from walls. He had never smelt men rot in trenches, never heard the wails of mothers trading children's bones for mercy. Yet, tomorrow, he would give the order to begin. He slipped to his tent at last, stripped mail, lay upon a camp bed. Though fatigue weighed every limb, sleep eluded him. He listened to the night noises, creak of leather, soft snore of guards, distant rumble of surf. His thoughts drifted like smoke. He imagined Dragonstone rising from black water, towers crowned with battlements shaped like open dragons' mouths. He saw himself ascending stone steps to the hall of painted table, where once Stannis Baratheon brooded over a realm he could not hold. In his dream, the table's carved rivers ran bright as real water, and tiny lights flickered in windows of castles no larger than thumbprints. A finger touched his shoulder. Rhaegar's, his mother's. It vanished before he could turn. He woke at first light to horns low and close. The second column had already broken camp. He armed in haste, washed his face in dew pooled on tarp, and mounted Rainwind. Connington joined him at the ridge crest. From there, they could see the gray stone of Griffin's roost half hidden behind a veil of morning fog. Aegon felt his guardian's shoulders tremble. "Nearly home," he whispered. "It is home," Connington said, voice raw. "But it waits." They left a company of archers and 2 field catapults beneath green-brown netting in a fold of hills, with orders to fly no banners and light no fires by night. Then the host wound westward, banners furled to strips. The road here was little more than a goat track, pocked by wheel ruts and hoof churn. They passed the bones of war, a toppled statue of Renly, mired in weeds, a burnt watchtower with melted bells, 3 wooden crosses tilting, pale ribs still clinging to dark straps though the flesh was gone. Crows flitted off, discontent until they returned. Past midday they encountered the first patrol. 7 men in studded cloaks emblazoned with the stag and rose. Tyrell retainers, likely foraging. They rode without scouts, holding a drunk's confidence in friendly ground. The Golden Company surrounded them silent as snowfall. When the Tyrells at last saw the banners, their faces paled to milk. Connington accepted their surrender with a nod. Stripped of arms, the 7 were bound lightly and given bread, told to bear a message. A Targaryen prince had returned and meant no ill to those who bent the knee. They rode away, white-faced as ghosts. "Too easy," muttered Black Balak, watching them vanish. "They will speak truth, and lions will sharpen claws." "Let them," Aegon said. "A roar travels far, but so does the hiss of a flame." They reached a rise overlooking the Mander's upper tributaries by sundown. Set upon flat ground rose a half-ruined sept where sunlight caught fractured stained glass. The cell's words bivouacked among tumblestone walls. Some knelt before cracked altars, praying to 7 they did not truly serve. Aegon walked the nave, where wind whistled through holes once filled by golden swords of light. He thought of Baelor the Blessed, who would fast for 40 days to honor the gods. He thought of Maegor the Cruel, hammering skulls beneath the starry sept. Between saints and monsters lay a knife's edge, and the realm might carve him into either. Night deep and cold, Connington found him again at the shattered altar. Word from the Watchers. Lannister outriders spied at Wendwater Bridge, 2 leagues north. Strength. 12, maybe more. Bannerless save for a red bastard stripe. Bloody-bowed lion, Aegon said. Sir Forley Prester, perhaps. Or one of the Clegane pups. Whoever, they know these hills. If they ride to Haystack Hall this night, Lannister foot could be at our back before we reach Bitterbridge. Connington paused. We should fall silent, double scouts, maintain the march. The boy prince studied moonlight, falling through a shattered pane. It cast colored diamonds across the floor, faint ghosts of what once dazzled worshippers. He saw red, gold, purple, green, dragonflame colors. Do so, he decided. We keep our pace. If Lannister claws dig in, we will pry them out with fire. Connington inclined his head. Your Grace. Alone again, Aegon sank to a stone bench. He fingered the hilt of his sword, a new forged blade yet to taste blood. The pommel stone was a ruby the size of a robin's egg, a gift from Illyrio Mopatis. It caught moonlight and glowed like a drop of heart fire. Would it flare brighter when wetted by war? He recalled a line from a book Varys once set before him. Bright were the swords of the dragon lords, burning red in the day of their wrath. He wondered if the chronicler had known how blood dries, how it cakes brown, how flies swarm like fate. Sleep claimed him on the bench at last, and brought uneasy visions. Banners flapping like broken wings, cities drowned beneath black water, bells tolling a dirge that sounded like his name. He woke shivering before dawn, every nerve taut, and for a moment he forgot where he was. Then the smell of pine wet earth returned, and with it, the weight of his armor and the taste of salt on his tongue. Outside, the Golden Company ready to move. Horses snorted clouds. Men buckled greaves and checked cinches. Aegon mounted and took his place beside Connington. Eastward, clouds broke in a seam of rose and gold. The first ray of sunrise lit their banners, and in that instant, for the first time, he felt them real. A dragon rampant, all heads roaring, stitched in silk the color of old blood and new birth. He lifted his sword, felt the chill steel sing faint against the scabbard throat, and believed, if only for a heartbeat, that prophecy could be forged by will alone. They rode. Gay. Dust rose in thin curtains from under the horses' hooves, turning the dawn-washed lane into a winding hallway of gold-flecked haze. Crows flapped from the hedgerows when the clinking column passed, their black wings ragged against the first shy blue of morning. Aegon shifted in his high saddle, feeling the leather stretch and creak beneath the mirror-bright plates Illyria's coin had bought. The armor weighed upon him as if it were a king's crown, less in mass than in memory, for each plate carried the ghosts of dead kings who had won or squandered their realm. Rainwind tossed her head, steam drifting from nostrils as white as reefstone lilies. The mare's ears pricked at the jangle of the nearby baggage train. The smell of oats and pitch mingled with pine sap, and the faint, acrid ghost of battlefield fires. Long cooled, John Connington rode directly ahead, crimson griffin sewn upon his broad back, the banner of a house buried yet unbroken. His shoulders, though gaunt from the sickness that hissed in his lungs, sat rigid as a standard pole. He spoke little, husbanding voice and breath for the melodies of war. Shouted orders, whispered counsels, the battle cries he might not live to utter but must be prepared to. Aegon watched the tremor twitch now and again in Connington's gloved hand. Rage, fever, or simple longing, perhaps all three braided about the bones. The vanguard crested another low rise. There, where morning shadows pooled in hollows, and the land sloped away in gentle rivers of heather, stood Griff's roost at last, a stout gray hill crowned by curtain walls, turrets like stubby fingers, and a single square keep thrusting above the ramparts. Even at distance, Aegon sensed the throb of Connington's heart. 2 decades ago, Robert's rebels had hammered Griffin banners to the mud. In the years since, bastards and minor men had worn the hill as ill-fitting armor. Now the stone lay mottled with new mortar and fresh timber hoardings, Sir Ronald Storm reinforcing against exactly this day. Yet between prince and prize lay half a league of tangled copses and knolls, seams in the land where a clever defender could hide archers or caltrops, where a bold attacker risked turning victory into meat for ravens. Connington raised a gauntlet, and the column halted. Dust drifted around shanks and stirrups. Aegon rode forward beside his lord, heart thumping. "She is beautiful, even half-armored," Connington murmured, voice low. "Taller than I remember." A bitter half-smile bent his lips. "Strange how stone can grow in absence." "Stone," Aegon began, but the older man was already turning Rainwind's head down the slope toward a shallow rill where their scouts knelt in the sedge. Raleigh Duckfield rose, helm laced under one arm. "Tracks, my prince. Hoof scrapes, deep. 10 riders, maybe 12. Fresh within 3 hours." "Outriders from the roost?" Connington asked. "Could be. Could as easy be the pack we heard spurred from Wendwater Bridge. Left heavy. Moving quick." "Then Shah." Aegon dismounted. Lights speared the fog, catching beads on mail like tiny suns. He crouched, tracing the churned earth. The impressions were sharp, edges not yet crumbled by wind. "They have not returned," he concluded. "Nor will they," Duck said, jerking a thumb east. "We set a noose along the Fern Pass. Little valley runs neat to the Weeping Brook. If they took it, they're ours." Connington's jaw tightened. "And if they veered north, then the gods cupped them in hands of shadow, and we follow tracks in the dark." Aegon straightened. "Either way, Griffin's Roost sees our banners by midday, or do we swing wide and let this place starve on rumors while we take Bitterbridge?" The Duck glanced at Connington. "Lord Captain knows these stones better than I know my own stepmother's pot of stew." Connington inhaled, as though hoping sea salt still clung in morning air to steady him. "We ring the hill but do not speak to it. No parley, no formal siege lines. A whisper in a man's ear bites deeper than a trumpet at his gate. Let Sir Ronald wonder if our steel is for him or the Lannisters on his road. Wonder breeds doubt. Doubt breeds cracks." "Bentuanis," He turned in the saddle. Tristan Rivers, take 200 and circle west. Show no standards, but let your captain speak of dragons return to hatch in Storm's End. Strickland, ride south half a league, and plant the skull banner alone. Behind you leave a trail of broken weapons, snapped as if after rout. I want the stories to clash and clamor like chimes in a storm. His smile was thin. A man who hears too many tales might believe any, or none. A murmur passed through the captains. These were Sel's words, used to coins and commanded walls, not to secrets darning dreams. But they obeyed, for curdled in each was the child memory of home, of seeding fields and kneeling for a harvest prayer. Home rested just beyond these hills, shining like a penny sun inside every breast. Columns split. Horses stamped and clattered downhill through dew-dipped grass, leaving only Aegon, Connington, Raleigh Duck, and a slender picket line of outriders to mark the center thrust. Mail flashed. Spears creaked in harness loops, and banners slithered around their poles like snakes still sleepy from winter. They crossed the rill, water silver in brightening day, then wound through a copse of ash where ravens nested thickly. The birds cawed at the intrusion. So many black tongues clacking a grim welcome. Beyond the trees the hill climbed. Gentle at first, then steepening, dotted with rocks crusted in lichens pale as milk. Closer now the walls showed patchwork repairs, newer stone lighter than the old timber hoardings, stained black with pitch. Upon the central keep flew the stag banner quartered with a red sunburst, the bastard arms of Storm. Wind tugged at the fabric like fingers anxious to tear. Wind changes, Duck muttered. Aegon tasted it. Sea salt, yes, but mingled with wood smoke. Fresh, not the lingering memory of burnt towns. Somewhere past the hill, breakfast fires smoldered. He pictured a squat kitchen yard within the walls. Cauldrons simmering oat pottage. Stable boys rubbing sleep from eyes while gossip fluttered on tongues. Sel's words landed in the night. Banners none could name. A market talker's tale at dawn could topple castles by dusk, if the day grew ripe for fear. They halted on an outcrop half a bowshot from the outer ditch. Guards atop the battlement peered down, crossbows cocked. One called, "Who rides to Griffin's Roost?" Connington lifted visor, letting the light strike pale stubble and hawk nose. For an instant, Aegon felt the hill itself catch breath. Those who served here now were children when Robert carved stag runes on walls. Yet fathers speak to sons, and the Connington name was whispered in lullabies, meant to warn or console. "Travelers only," Connington replied, tone mild as May. "Seeking the high road to Greenstone." The guard's brow knitted. "High road south. You've drifted wrong." His eye slid to Aegon's polished steel, the ruby pommel by his hip. "Your friend's harness gleams bright for wandering lost. Do shining coins offend dusty walls?" Connington asked. Another guard atop the wall hissed, "You'll find no welcome here, my Lord Griff." His voice cracked, half a shout, half a terrified wail. Crossbows lifted higher. Aegon saw the tremor in one archer's arms, the bowstring jittered. Fear, yes, but whose? Theirs, of some story come alive. Or his own, of what might happen next. Connington's helmet settled, with a silent nod. He wheeled his gelding downhill, Aegon beside. No order passed, yet the outriders melted back among trees. No arrow followed them, only eyes tracked from Merlon's, bewildered, worrying. Once out of sight beyond the next rise, Connington exhaled sharply. "They know me." "Is that ill?" Aegon asked. "In time it will be good. But first, the knowing must ache. When Sir Ronald feels the ache, he will count his stores, measure his men, wonder what peace a dragon offers." Connington looked toward the distant shimmer of Wendwater River. "And we move on." They made half a league before midday heat blanketed the sky. Clouds piled in white fleets above the green horizon, sails spread wide. The host's 3 parts converged again at a shallow ford, waters ribbed by sunlight. Black Balak stalked from the tree line, copper coins at his neck, flashing, grin wide. Our deceit sows fruit already. Peasant riders scurried from Bitterbridge, gaping at talk of golden skulls feasting on lion heads. One set of dragon's egg sits now in Lord Rowan's hall, near hatched. His laugh rumbled. "A lovely lie. Pray it not hatch too soon." Aegon said, though his chest thrilled at the speed of rumor. Tristan Rivers arrived moments later, helm dented, cloak flecked with blood. Lion Outriders dead in the Fern Pass. 8 slain, 3 fled, 1 captured. He jerked a thumb toward the prisoner, wrists bound, armor scraped. Red lion on a bastard stripe marked his surcoat, confirming suspicion. Squire claims Sir Forley Prester commands, 50 men behind us, marching to Haystack Hall. Tristan spat. We broke his nose for courtesy. Connington surveyed the bound squire, whose lip oozed crimson. What say you, lad? Does Sir Forley hunt Connington's ghost? The youth swallowed. Sir Forley hunts brigands, my lord. Bandits plague these hills since summer, wearing many banners. He means no ill to bandits in plate, Tristan scoffed. Bandits who call him sir and feed him words of Castlemaine. Connington waved a hand. Set the squire upon a mule and tie his bonds loose. If he flees, well, let him flee carrying the weight of what he's seen. He turned to Aegon. Little time, little choice. We march on Bitterbridge. If Rowan and Tarly left, Haystack Hall is the western bolt locking Tyrell grain from Lannister supply lines. If we strike there before Prester, we wrench the bolt free. Or offer to share it. Aegon nodded. And leave Griffin's roost watching our dust. Good. Let it hunger. They crossed the Wendwater by the ford, and soon passed fields lined with ordered rows of barley, sprouting tender green. Stone dikes channeled riverlets through plots, signs of careful husbandry. Yet scarecrows sagged, slashed to ribbons, and in one field, the rotting carcass of a mule leaned against its own plow, black with flies. War had walked here. That afternoon brought thunderheads coiling in from the east. Purple bruises marbled the clouds. The wind, once gentle, gained teeth. Tarpaulins were lashed over the baggage wagons. Scouts hurried to find dry hollows. The first fat raindrops smacked dust like thrown pebbles, and within heartbeats the world blurred. The army trudged on through shifting veils of water, boots sucking from mudholes, cloaks clinging like drowned wings. Yet morale did not sag. To many Sellswards, rain meant fewer eyes in the sky, fewer arrows flying true. Aegon rode with Connington beneath a waxed canvas mantlet rigged between their saddle horns. Rainwind snorted at lightning cracks up valley. Summer storm, Connington murmured. Short, sharp, gone by dusk. If it thickens the Wendwater, Prester's 50 slow. Aegon flicked water from gauntlet. We may reach Bitterbridge unchallenged. But storms breed surprises. Connington responded with a cough that rattled like bones in a sack. Aegon tried to ignore the wet rasp, harder to mask in damp night air. Connington's sickness, whispered of only in candlelit cabins, smelled of grave dust. He told no one of the herbs Illyrio had packed, or the times he shivered an hour under blankets after dawn watch. Aegon knew. The boy had watched the man pace decks through fevers, sweat shining his brow beneath moonlight. He understood that each mile conquered now was one Connington might not finish. Lightning revealed a tower shape on distant roadside. Stubby, square, half collapsed. There they halted to wait out the heaviest squall. Scouts cleared the ruin's base of quick-kind snakes that coiled in the rubbled corners, seeking the same dry stone. Campfires were forbidden. They passed wineskins and salted meat under dripping eaves, while rain hammered the land flat. In that hour, word arrived of an envoy. 3 riders approaching from south beneath a flag half white, half orange. No sigil at distance, but the lead rider bore a cloak trimmed in gold cloth. Connington narrowed eyes. Orange within the reach hints Rowan, but he rides north. Could be a petty banner seeking parley. Aegon wiped rain from lashes. Let them come. A prince's road finds allies in the mud. The envoys entered the tower court, dismounting under guard. Their leader was a man of 40, broad-shouldered, his wet hair a rust color plastered to temples. His cloak displayed an apple, quartered orange and blue, House Fossaway, New Barrel. That banner had once stood for Renly, then for Stannis, now rumored for Tommen. Yet fruit rolls were thrown. Lord Eldon Fossaway, he greeted, voice carrying under the rain drum. I beg pardon that we meet amidst ruin. Yet perhaps ruin is where new seeds root. Connington inclined his head, but it was Egan who stepped forward, helm tucked beneath elbow, rain glimmering on the fine pale hair revealed. Fossaway's gaze latched upon that silver gold, pupils dilating. "You know me?" Aegon asked, gentle, almost curious. "I know a tale I heard at Bitterbridge this morning." Fossaway's throat bobbed. "A tale of a prince returned. Tales grow wings in storms. Some land soft, some strike claw." Aegon gestured to a flat slab of stone half-sheltered by the broken arch. "Let us speak." They seated, guards ringing them quiet as statues. Fossaway's men fidgeted. Golden Company soldiers eyed them with cat-like amusement. "My liege Lord Mathis Rowan marched north under royal summons," Fossaway began. "His halls stand under my watch, but grain rots in barns, the black water stinks of corpses, and rumor says long lions stalk to drink reach wine. My small folk fear another storm sweeping up from King's Landing." "Storms can carry many banners," Aegon said. "Some less appetizing than others." Fossaway's mouth twisted. "I would prefer apples ripen under kind dawns." Connington leaned forward. "Speak plain, my lord." "I come at risk, Lord Connington." "Yes, I know the face beneath rust and rain." "I come to see the boy called young Griff." Aegon saw Connington stiffen at the younger name, but he raised a hand to still him. "Here sits he," the prince said, "though you may call me by the name my father gave." Fossaway drew breath as if the world tilted. "Aegon, your grace, if you are indeed." His eyes flicked to the ruby pommel, the dragon scale etchings on temper line. "I served Lord Renly. When he fell, I bent knee to Stannis. When Stannis fled, Tyrell might forced my apple to King's Landing. My branch bends with wind, aye, but root aches. I believe in kings that keep their word, not words dressed as king." "Then you have served none these past years," Aegon said softly. "Will you serve one now?" The man's shoulders sagged. "I would see your proof. A sign. Not parchment, not magister coin." Aegon glanced at Connington, then back. "Proof is easy to promise, easier to forge. Instead I offer oaths. You hold Bitterbridge and its barns for my host. You send riders to invite your neighbors, Tarth, Penrose, Caron, each to taste the bread of peace beneath my standard in 5 days. If they find my bread bitter, they may spit it and ride free. If they find it satisfying, they sign their names with mine. In return, I swear no man of mine plunders a bushel of your grain unpaid. No torch touches your orchards, no sword lifts against your foe. And when I sit the Iron Throne, House Fossaway's branch will bloom thrice golden under the sun." Then, Fossaway's mouth worked. "Words. They are. Yet the 7 gods built their sept upon words etched by man. And you came here on a word whispered in a barn." Connington rose, coughing once. "What he offers, Lord Eldon, is not ink but breath. Trust or turn from it." Fossaway stood, rain rolling from his cloak like beads of amber. 5 days. My hall is open, but I cannot guarantee each lord's safety from rivals. Blood feuds root deeper than loyalties. Narisiwati. "Then we shall provide hostages to each other," Aegon said. "A knight of mine for a knight of yours. The old ways, if you will." He extended a gauntlet. "Do we break bread?" Fossaway hesitated, then clasped the proffered hand. Thunder crashed as their grip tightened. 5 days. When the envoys rode back into the storm, whispers leapt among the Golden Company like sparks on tinder. Aegon allowed himself one deep breath. Each small lord they bent added grain to feed soldiers and barns to lure larger fish. But each oath also tangled him deeper in the net of Westerosi politics. Vengeance sewn into the warp. Spite wefted through the cloth. Still, cloth warms in winter, he reminded himself. Lightning flickered, revealing Duckfield's grin. "Bread and blood, eh, lad? A finer feast than salted beef." "If the bread proves free of worms," Connington warned, voice low. He coughed again, harsher. The rain masked the rattle, but Aegon heard. That night, the storm blew south. Stars revealed themselves like tears in a black cloak. Fires were permitted at last, small and hooded. The army camped nearer to the Bitterbridge road, within a glen shielded by elder oaks. Guards posted thrice, scouts triple scour. Yet Aegon found a measure of calm for the first time since setting heel on Westeros. He sat before a low fire with Duck, Balak, and Black Birch the crossbow captain, sharing a skin of arbor red filched from Irish holds. They spoke of nothing grand, the taste of dragonstone clams, the howl of stepstone's gales, the way Lysine women braided hair with silver pins. Laughter came from men used to counting copper scars, and in that laughter, Aegon glimpsed the realm he wished to forge, where sellswords might lay down sell spears and till their own fields. Sleep claimed him in a canvas lean-to. Strange dreams rode him, a hall of mirrors where each reflection bore a crown of flame. A black cat with a bleeding tail chasing 3 mice round a weirwood stump. Daenerys, clad in ash, offering a pale child a dragon's egg cracked and dripping gold. He woke before dawn, heart tripping, skin cold. Connington's shadow loomed at the entrance. Lannister column on the march, he whispered. Northwest, 2 leagues. Banners. Red lion under black bar sinister. Prester's men as guest. Aegon splashed water on his face, donned mail. Strength, 50 riders, 20 bowmen afoot. 2 wagons of bolts and quarrels. Heavy on crossbows, light on courage. The prince buckled sword belt. If we cut them, lion tongues wag. Connington's eyes glinted through visor slit. A shallow gorge near the Rowan Road. Trees thick. Slopes steep. Balak's men could roll stones from either ridge while Duck's archers feather them. We capture half, kill half, release 1 captain blindfolded to carry tale. Natuar. Aegon slung cloak. Dot. No rape, no excess burn. Let them limp home with wounds, not corpses. They rode at sunrise, leaving baggage to follow. The gorge waited like a cracked eggshell between twin hills, shaggy with pine. Balak's low spears dug in among roots, concealing bright blades beneath moss. Archers settled behind fallen logs. Arrows loosened from quivers. Aegon waited at the gorge's mouth with Connington. Rain went tossing head in impatience. The lions came single file, red surcoats dull under morning glare. Some sang a bawdy verse of King Robert's wine-stained exploits. Others jabbered about a rumored siege at Maidenpool. Their laughter echoed off stone walls like coins clinking in a hollow chest. At midpoint, Duck's whistle trilled thrice. Stones cascaded from both rims, bounding, smashing. Horses screamed. Men looked up too late. Arrows hissed, punching mail. Panic splattered the formation. Riders wheeled, crushed those behind. Aegon spurred forward with 30 cavalry, blocking the retreat. Steel rang, reins snapped. Blood misted in sunlight like rosewater. Yet the fight was over swiftly. Disarmed men kneeling with hands clasped. 1 wagon ablaze where torch met spilled lamp oil. 12 dead lions, 21 wounded. 17 unscathed but unnerved. Ser Forley Prester himself lay beneath a half-pinned gelding. Legs snapped. Aegon dismounted. Mud smeared his greaves. 1 helm dent where an axe glanced. He approached Prester, who clenched teeth around pain. "Your men fought with courage," Aegon said. Prester spat bloody phlegm. "Cowards in trees is courage? Courage is knowing a trap might lie in the next valley yet marching anyway for your lord's coin," Aegon answered. "I honor that. Bind his leg, keep him alive, then return him to Haystack Hall with his unhurt men at dusk. They may carry word I offer nobler wages than coin. Safety. Tristan Rivers, wiped sword. And the dead? Send them in his wagons, draped in their banners. Let the Lannisters bury their own. Mercy travels as far as threat." Connington's look balanced pride and caution. "The songs will speak of dragon mercy." "Let them," Aegon said, "so long as the men remember the fire beneath the velvet." By noon the wounded prisoners were tended, the burning wagon extinguished. Prester, pale and sweating, swore oath on his house, and the 7 that he would deliver the prince's message word true to Sir Ronald and Lord Commander Meryn at Haystack. He was given a flag of truce, a small cask of poppy milk, and 6 goats for meat. As he hobbled away, wavering on makeshift crutch, he glanced back at the silver-haired youth and mouthed something lost in wind, prayer or curse. The gorge fight spoils filled a wagon, quivers of lion-fletched bolts, mail shirts of fair Lannisport weave, coin purses fat with silver stag pieces bearing Joffrey's grin. Aegon ordered the take tallied but not yet divided. First, pay the surgeons, next buy grain. If coin remains, then we reward. The column turned south again. Word arrived of the landing fleet anchored near Estermost, putting ashore fresh supplies. Balak's Lysany sailors marched provisions inland, cloaked as fisherfolk. Another missive from Fossaway. Rowan's steward returned to Bitterbridge, garrison reduced, but talk of trial at King's Landing draws many bannermen away. A feast prepared for the invited lords on the morrow. Aegon read the letter twice, ink still glistening where the seal broke. He moves quick, the prince mused. Connington said, too quick can break neck. Yet he pressed the host to make time. The Golden Company's right flank swung wider, double marching cross-country to mask the bulk of foot. Archers hunted hares along hedgerows, adding fresh meat to kettles. Rain-clear evenings brought glimpses of half-full moon. Nightbirds called. A fox slunk through campfires to steal rind and crust. Life under canvas blurred into rhythm. Dawn muster, midday pace, dusk watch, whispered talk of children far across the narrow sea, or coin stashed in Bravos banks no one had seen. On the fourth morning they reached the outskirts of Bitterbridge. Mist clung low above the tributary. Willows dipped hair into slow water. The town sprouted upon both banks, wooden palisades to the east. Stone quay to the west, where the old green arch bridge earned its name. Apple banners fluttered atop squat towers. White cloths draped across gatehouses as sign of peace. Beyond the wall, smoke curled from ovens, aroma of fresh bread drifting to road. Fossaway's welcome grown literal. Aegon tempered hopefulness. We enter unhelmed, he ordered officers. Show faces, not iron. Yet keep crossbows hidden in carts. Connington nodded agreement, though his gaunt cheeks twitched with misgiving. Dominion seldom relinquishes fear lightly. The gates yawned. Townsfolk lined the narrow main street. Bakers, cobblers, 2 maesters from the local sept. Children perched on sinus of roof beams. They stared, some wide-eyed, some wary, at the sellswards in disciplined file. Aegon rode Rainwind, sword sheathed, left hand lifted in greeting. Murmurs rippled, low at first, then louder. Dragon Prince, silver hair. Connington, come home. 7 shield us? One old woman tossed a sprig of apple blossom. It fluttered to rest on the gelding's mane. Aegon tucked it in his gauntlet cuff. Fossaway awaited before the market hall, a timbered building whose beams bore carved apples in perpetual harvest. He bowed deep, resplendent, in a doublet of orange velvet. Beside him stood his sister, Lady Jean, hair braided with small silver bells, and Sir Hobber Redwine as guest envoy of House Redwine, whose fleet ruled the seas off Arbor. That presence startled Aegon. The Reach Navy leaning neutral could shift tides. Inside the hall, tables groaned under weight of roasted quail, wheels of mellow goat cheese, honey-glazed chestnuts. Lords minor filtered in through lattice doors. Sir Roland Storm of Penrose blood, Sir Galadon Tarth's widower cousin, the weeping knight of Mistwood whose daughters had died in the bread riots, Lord Caron's maester, smugglers bearing seals of House Morrigan, and 2 septons from Evenfall drifting like fall leaves upon lingering prayers. Each bowed upon greeting the prince, some with distant politeness, others with hope sharp as spear points. Fossaway raised a toast of apple wine, then seated the floor. Aegon did not ascend dais or throne. He stood upon the rushes, armor left beyond the hall door, clad in simple brown jerkin stitched with subtle dragon thread. He spoke of storms that had split the realm, of children orphaned by banners they never swore, of roads grown thick with wolves, both 4-legged and 2. He spoke of dragons not as beasts but as symbols of unity, of the doom of Valyria, not as a warning of pride but a reminder that even empires burn when they lose purpose. He promised low taxes for 7 years to houses who opened grain barns, amnesty for retainers who laid down arms within a moon's turn, restoration of old privileges lost under the Targaryen kings, who who had bled the realm for wars across the sea. He promised above all to stand first in battle and last in feast, to earn each oath with equal courage. Silence followed, thick as honey. Then Sir Roland Storm stepped forward, slid sword free, knelt, and laid it across his palms. "Dragon, return," he intoned. "My sword is yours." One by one, others echoed. Not all, but enough to ripple like wind across tall grass. Lady Jane pressed apple blossoms to Aegon's hair, bells chiming. That night, torches lined the bridge, shimmering in river reflection like twin rows of small suns. The Golden Company camped beyond the western gate. In the town square, minstrels played lutes while wine flowed. A hog turned over a pit, juices popping. Yet not all hearts were merry. Connington remained in the captain's pavilion, quill scratching dispatch to the fleet. Sail half the cargo upriver to Bitterbridge, anchor beyond shoals. Shivers racked his shoulders when he leaned back. Aegon, arriving late, caught the tremor he tried to hide. "I have work," Connington whispered. "You have fever." Aegon pressed hand to brow, hot as kettle rim. "You need rest. What I need is a maester with more than leeches. And time." His eyes met the boy's. "Do not pity me until the realm is whole again." Aegon choked back protest. He poured willowbark tea, made Connington drink. Then he rode into torchlight along the bridge, letting the revel see their prince unguarded. Cheers rose, wild and warm. He smiled, though inside he felt the creeping chill Connington exhaled. Midnight found him wandering the market stalls, where vendors pressed candied apples, bracelets of apple seed carved into hearts, ribbons dyed green and gold. He carried each gift to the campfire line, distributing to footmen. Small tokens forging larger loyalty. He laughed with Raleigh Duck about a dancer who tried to claim Duckfield's helm as hat. He shared a skin of mint liquor with Black Balak, who spoke of sailing out of sunset one day hoping to find the world's edge. Later, alone near the riverside, he watched torches blink along the parapets. Frogs croaked, a fish leaped, sending rings across Moon Path. He thought of other rivers. The Royne's warm swirl beneath Volantis bridges, the black water where wildfire had turned night to emerald flame, the trident whose waters still cradled rubies of his father's last stand. Rivers carried blood to sea, but they also brought fresh silt for fields. Renewal in dissolution. Behind him a voice said, "Prince." Davos Seaworth stepped from shadows, cloak patched, beard salted with gray. His eyes were watchful, weary. Aegon turned. "Sir Davos." "No, sir, now." Davos glanced toward the revel. "I come on my own. No banners. Stannis sent me north, then east, now I come south." He shrugged. "Tides. They carry many to the same shore." Aegon gestured to a bench of worn stone. They sat, the river whispering secrets. Davos spoke of miseries on the wall, dead men walking. Stannis' pride tangled in prophecy. "He is a true king in heart, but hearts alone don't keep men fed." He eyed Aegon. "You speak of bread. That matters." Aegon poured ale from a jug left by some reveler. Davos sipped. "I would ask your counsel, Onion Knight. Not paid, not demanded, offered." The older man arched a brow. "My counsel weighs a copper, some say, but I'll give it honest. Kings need honest tongues near." "Then stay. Speak." Dawn. Dawn gilded the eastern sky before they parted. Davos took no oaths, but his eyes carried a light newly kindled. The following day, black smoke smudged the horizon westward, Haystack Hall ablaze. Word raced. Lannister forces, joined by mercenary cell-sails, had put the castle to torch when Sir Forley returned bandaged and broken. Whether madness or command, his men fired storehouses before withdrawing north. Refugees flooded Bitterbridge. Farmers with charred tools, children coughing from smoke. Aegon opened the barns purchased with lion silver, distributing grain. He assigned surgeons to treat burns, smiths to repair broken plows. The refugees spoke Aegon's name in cracked voices, as if tasting hope between flecks of ash. Connington watched from the bridgehead, face gray with fever, yet eyes aflame. "Prester sought to deny us stores," he rasped. But fire stokes anger more than appetite. Aegon nodded, feeling the weight of a crown he did not yet wear. War was a forge, heating hearts, bending wills. But too much heat could twist the blade. He must cool it with mercy, temper it with justice, else it might snap. On the morning of the 5th day, horns sounded on the north road. Banners of House Rowan returning, plum and gold. Lord Mathis rode at head, armor scratched, face weary from the march to King's Landing and back. With him marched Lord Randall Tarley, eagle-eyed, jaws clenched. They had left Margaery Tyrell absolved by trial of 7, Tommen still crowned, and Cersei Lannister imprisoned by fanatics. King's Landing spiraled in new chaos. They had returned to gather forces. Bitterbridge's gates opened under white banners. Rowan and Tarley entered to find a dragon prince feeding their people. Tarley's hand fell to hilt, Rowan's to heart. Words exchanged inside the apple hall, sharp as swordplay but polite as any dance. Aegon offered the same bread, the same free passage. Tarley questioned, Rowan weighed, Davos corroborated. Outside the small folk watched, breathing as one waiting on a verdict. At length, Tarley strode onto the hall steps, removed gauntlet, and knelt before the prince. Rowan followed. A roar lifted. Apples falling, bells ringing, voices chanting the ancient words. The dragon has 3 heads. Aegon felt the bridge sway under echo. He thought of his aunt across the sea with real dragons on the wing. 3 heads indeed. Himself, Daenerys, perhaps some other yet unborn. Could they share a rule? Or must one lose to balance the prophecy? Night fell with wind keening through arrow loops. Connington staggered near collapse, but pride kept him upright as he watched new banners join the camp. Apple of Rowan, Huntsman of Tarley, White Star of Penrose, Blue Lance of Tar. Supplies tripled. Cavalry doubled. Word flew to Storm's End, to Old Town, to Dorne. The reach wavered at a cusp. A breath might tip it. Aegon summoned captains to a map, lit by tallow tapers. Our foothold stands. Next we need a beacon. He pointed to Storm's End on parchment. If the Storm Lords rally to me, the realm sees not rumor but truth. Storm's End walls never crumb to siege, Tarley warned. It fell once to stealth, Davos countered, remembering onions smuggled. Connington placed a trembling finger on Griffin's roost. Dow. Take my home first, your grace. A door before the castle. When Sir Ronald kneels, the rest bow easier. No. Aegon covered the hand. Your home stands sentinel. Let it watch longer. Storm's End then, but not by siege. By surprise. How? Duckfield asked. Aegon smiled. By river and rain. Balak, gather your best sailors. Tarth's narrow craft hide in coves. Davos, you know Storm's End cliffs like wedding vows. Show our Lysini where to steer. Tarley, ready the ground host but hold distance. When the gate opens, the Golden Company rides first. Day. He looked at each face, seeing doubt, hope, calculation. This war birthed 5 kings and will bury 5,000. I would end it before it births 10. Trust me a little longer. They nodded, some firm, some hesitant. Outside, Bitterbridge bells rang vespers. Aegon stepped onto the parapet. Torches flickered along curtain walls, mirrored in river below like ranks of patient soldiers. He thought of Daenerys again. Dragons strong enough to burn every holdfast between here and the Trident. Could he, with sellswords and storms, win hearts before she crossed with fire? He must. For if she came to ashes, she might find nothing left to rule. Rainwind nickered below in the stable yard. The sky spread clear. Stars sharp. He traced a constellation once called the Dragon Spear, imagining it thrust toward King's Landing. Tomorrow, letters would ride to Dorne, invoking promises of Elias' children. The day after, sails would slice Wendwater's moonlit tide, and soon the realm would taste thunder rolling from Blackhaven to the Stepstones. He prayed the taste would be sweet enough to follow. Behind him, a coughing fit racked Connington. Aegon turned, supporting the older man until it passed. Connington wiped blood-specked spittle from his lips. Go on, my prince, he whispered, voice hoarse. Wear the crown I failed to bring home." Aegon embraced him. "Not failed. You guided me to the throne's doorstep. We will cross together." Connington's head shook faint. He forced a smile. "Together is many steps, and dawn yet far. But dragons remember." The torchlight shone in the man's fever-bright eyes like distant beacons. Aegon felt the weight of prophecy's yoke and the tender grip of human loyalty. Both would demand a price. He breathed deep of night air, wet earth, apple blossom, river mist, and vowed to pay it in full measure, coin and blood alike, yet never in cruelty for its own sake. The river whispered beneath the bridge. Somewhere, a child laughed, chasing fireflies under the newly raised dragon banner. Aegon watched them sparkle like embers, drifting into darkness before flaring once more. The realm, he thought, is like that child, darting between ruins, grasping for light. If he could be the lantern, maybe, just maybe, fewer would stumble. Wind shifted, carrying a faint distant roar. Waves on cliffs, or perhaps dragons across the sea beating wings in restless dream. He shivered, not from cold, but from the quicksilver thrill of destiny pooling in his veins. Tomorrow, storms end. Tomorrow, thunder in the bones of bastards and kings. And so the Golden Company settled under Bitterbridge apple trees, while ravens took flight bearing news to every corner of Westeros. A dragon prince had landed during the War of 5 Kings, and with bred steel and an honest tongue, he meant to claim what storms and lions had stolen. Word by word, mile by mile, the realm began to wake. A hush hung over Bitterbridge long before dawn, the river a silver ribbon in the dark. Halls shuddered against a breeze that smelled faintly of lavender and forge smoke. Campfires beyond the western gate had burned to white embers. Even the revelers who had kept the apple market alive with pipes and laughter now slept off their wine beneath makeshift awnings. In the command pavilion behind Lord Fossaway's granaries, Raleigh Duckfield bent over a rough plank table daubed with wet ink, ticking off column weights and bowstrings, his lips pursed as if arguing with the half-drawn lines. Opposite him, Black Balak teased the ivory hilt of his curved Myrish dagger, leaning back on a stool that creaked like an old hawk. John Connington sat propped on a heap of pillows, joints wrapped in wool, skin gleaming with fever sweat. His once steady hands trembled each time he pushed a carved griffin pawn across the small Savassa board. Set up at his bedside, the little pieces marking gates and tunnels instead of elephants and princes. When a coughing fit seized him, he bit it back, waving away the leech maester fussing in the corner. The maester was new come from Evenfall, all poultices and muttered prayers. Connington tolerated him only because Aegon had commanded it. Aegon himself paced the tent's edge, boots whispering over reed-strewn boards. Dawn was still an hour away, but he wore his armor, the dragon-scaled breastplate gleaming dully in lamplight. The ruby in his sword pommel threw tiny sparks across the canvas whenever he turned too sharply, a blood-red gyre spinning toward whatever decision circled next. Sleep had avoided him for 3 nights. He could feel it twitching at the edge of thought, cool shadow fingers tugging eyelids down, yet purpose kept him upright. "Seaward wind," Balak murmured at length, cocking his head to listen. "Good omen for sails slipping into Wendwater mouth. Bad omen for watchers on Storm's End ramparts. Salt mist drifts in, blinds eyes." Duckfield jabbed the map. "That mist hides our narrow craft on the approach. Aye, but it hides the shores too. Rowers could crack hull on rocks if Davos misjudges the pull. Tide turns in 2 hours. Davos does not misjudge," Aegon said. Hay-steered onion boats through the same jagged teeth in the black of Robert's siege. The tent flap rustled, and Davos Seaworth stepped in, cloak dripping river dew. His beard glistened silver, eyes sharp despite the hour. "Tide's dropping quick. The Lysini have every oar banked silent as priests. We row at half-light or not at all." Aegon gave a terse nod. "Then it is half-light." He turned to Connington. "Advise me one last time." Connington's smile carved furrows at the corners of his mouth. "I would ride at your side through the gate, but the gods clipped me. Take Balak's reavers and Duck's bows, leave Strickland's heavy men to hold Bitterbridge against the Lannisters. Split them in 3s. One spear unit to the postern above the sea gate, one to the old Sally tunnel Davos says is barred only by rust, the rest ahead of you when the main drawbridge falls. Once inside, ring the yard, but leave the great hall doors untouched till you stand beneath the crinolles. Then call for parley. Even stubborn ones hear better after they count arrows trained on them. Bah! And if stubborn ones decide to fight regardless, the older man touched the Savas prince. Then your dragon roars. But do not let your sellswords loose inside that fortress without your word to leash them. Storm's End is legend. To keep it, you must win respect, not corpses. Nay. Aegon clasped Connington's hand. I will return before night with the gate keys. Connington whispered, Home then, and closed his eyes as if hoarding the word. Outside, Bitterbridge still slumbered. Davos led the prince along silent alleys where torch stubs guttered in iron baskets. The Onion Knight's stride never faltered. He knew the way to the river landing by heart. Mists curled between the pilings, swallowing cobble echoes. There waited 3 longboats, low-walled, painted mud brown. Sailcloth had been stripped. Oars rested like folded wings. Balak's Lishani crouched at benches, cheeks smeared with lamp, soot to dull sheen. Behind them, bundled beneath high tarps, lay Duckfield's dozen best archers. Men and women who could feather a crow through fog on a moonless night. A bowstring thrummed soft as breath when Aegon stepped aboard. The prow dipped, water-lapped hull, and for a heartbeat it seemed the river eddied with the same tension that shook his bones. Davos took the tiller, glancing at rising eastern glow. With the gods, he muttered, touching his finger stubs to lips. Each boat slid free. Oars dipped without splash, blades feathered by expert wrists. Bitterbridge vanished behind them, torch smudges dying one by one. Ahead, the windwater broadened. Banks lost to thickening salt vapor blown inland. Dawn kindled to a dull copper disk hidden behind cloud, its light seeping through mist like embers beneath ash. Geese honked, unseen. Somewhere, a solitary heron flapped heavily. For 2 hours they rowed, muscles straining silent. The river narrowed again, hemmed by the storm-washed cliffs north of Weeping Town. Here, Davos angled the lead craft toward a black waterline fissure. The old smuggler's slit, he whispered. Never wider than a cart, but twice as deep as it looks. Flood tide will lift us just enough to ride the surge inside. Balak's grin showed white teeth against soot, like slipping steel between ribs. The current tugged, strong and sly. The hull bumped stone once, twice. Then the slit consumed them. Darkness folded close. An oar-scraped wall, sparks skittering. Voices hushed. Far ahead, a dot of pale daylight winked. Davos steered by memory more than sight, adjusting a finger's breadth each dozen strokes. At last the cleft belched them into a cavernous salt basin. A cove hidden beneath the cliffs of Storm's End, half natural, half widened by pick years before Robert's rebellion as part of Smuggler's Web. Above, the fortress loomed in ghost lattice. Pale walls seamed with damp, towers thrusting into low cloud. Its gigantic drum-shaped curtains smoothed away direct descent, but Davos pointed left toward a narrow spill of rock where tidal rubble collected. From there, a goat track angles beneath the postern. Used to haul fish nets, guards rarely bother, tide stink keeps them clear. Boats nudged shore. Ropes tossed, grapnels bit into coral. Balak's reavers scrambled, securing perimeter, knives between teeth. Duck's archers followed, unslinging short recurves treated against brine. Aegon hopped ashore, boots sinking in kelp mush, sea spray pricking face. The roar of surf echoed thunder inside cliff mouth. Loud enough, he prayed, to swallow accidental clatters. They climbed. The goat track was more memory than path, overgrown with stringy vine and crusted droppings from nesting gulls. Twice men slid, catching holds by fingernail. The climb ended at a seam where moss-slick block met living stone. An ancient postern, 3 men wide iron-bound door flanked by arrow loops. A single lantern glow leaked from within. Voices drifted. 2 guards talking of dice, bored as cats. Balak signaled. Two reavers slithered close, pressing backs to wall. One rap soft, the coded 3 short 1 long Davos had told them, was the fisher's signal of safe return from nightcast. Locks clanked. The door grated open. Balak moved like oil, blade flashing. A startled grunt, a wet gasp. A body eased to flagstones. The second guard half turned. A stiff drawn arrow hissed into his throat before he could shout. Both fell soundlessly. Aegon stepped through, heart hammering, sword still sheathed. A corridor tunneled right, faintly lit by guttering torches. Drafts moaned. Aegon felt the weight of 600 feet of battlement and legend above his helm. Storms end. The castle storms could not break. Walls so thick even Dragonflame of old Aegon's sisters had barely scorched its stone. If he failed here, every small victory would unravel before sunset. They split. Duck's archers crept up spiral star towers to seize parapets. Balak's reavers poured down into kitchens to secure gatehouse pulleys. Aegon, Davos, and a knot of Polax fighters moved toward the center bailey, where the massive wooden doors of the main gate waited. The castle still slept. Rain-damp banners hung limp. The crowned stag of Baratheon quartered with the fiery heart of Lady Melisandre's god, black now that Stannis was gone. Only the occasional booth heel echoed across flagstones, and on each echo an arrow quivered into a guard's lung. The reavers were silent artists of death. At last, they reached the gatehouse vestibule. 2 sleepy guards dozed on benches before the winding drum of the winch wheel. Duck's captain, a woman called Quick Nady, slid her edge across their throats in a single pass. Blood hit straw, hissed. Davos swung the lever bar. Chains rattled overhead. Outside, beyond the portcullis, waited 300 Golden Company horse in wedge formation, clad in dull mail laid with cloth of apple green to mimic Rowan colors. Tarly himself rode at the fore, helm under arm. Eyes piercing mist for the signal they'd chosen. 3 short clangs of the portcullis chain in quick succession. When the gate teeth rose, the clangs rang, metallic and strange in the dawn hush. Hooves thundered across drawbridge plank. The yard exploded in motion. Stable hands shouted, dogs barked, cooks screamed. But by the time the first alarm bell clanged from the drum tower, Tarly's men had wheeled their destroyers into a blocking ring, and Duck's archers held every matriculation. Balak's reavers dragged startled Castellan knights, half-armored from the barracks, kicking. Aegon strode into the open. Helm off, silver hair unhidden. Sun broke over the sea at that moment. Shafts slanting past tower crenels, gilding the ruby on his sword. It glowed like live coal. He lifted the blade. Hold. His voice carried clear across courtyard stone. Hold steel, and no blood need feed the tide. Soldiers froze mid-draw, confusion writhing over faces smeared with sleep. A few dropped weapons outright, eyes huge. Others, loyal to whatever lord paid yesterday's wages, hesitated, until Duck's archers cocked strings in unison, an audible chorus of fatal readiness. Ser Gilbert Faring, Storm's End Castellan, in Stannis' absence, emerged on the wall stair, wearing only his mail shirt and a host of mismatched pauldrons. He blinked at the dragon banners, at the golden skull ensign rippling from Tarly's spear, at the silver-haired boy standing calm beneath arrow shadows. Recognition hit like slap on wet skin. By the 7, Tarly rode forward. Ser Gilbert, stand your garrison down. You face the rightful heir of House Targaryen? Return to claim the protection of this keep for the realm. Kneel and be pardoned. Resist and be buried beneath your own seawall. Faring's gaze darted to the portcullis gears, manned by Balak's men, to the ring of bows, to the cavalry massed in the yard. He licked dry lips. What proof of right, he croaked. Aegon sheathed sword, reached inside tunic, and produced a small, battered crown, thin beaten gold with 3 low crests shaped as dragon heads. The crown of Prince Daeron the Good, spirited across the sea after the trident, smuggled from Illyria's vaults, on a risk only sellsword gamblers would try. Sunlight caught the dull metal, turning it to warm ember. This was my father's father's. And this. Aegon pointed up at Storm's End's highest drum tower, where a relief carving of a three-headed dragon still curled archaic above the new painted stag badge. This castle was built for Durin Defiant, kept by Argilac Arrogant, surrendered to Orys Baratheon, my kin through blood of Aegon the Conqueror's sister. I ask you now, will Durin's walls keep faith with dragon blood once more? Silence claimed the yard. Faring's flinty features folded. He knelt. A clatter as sword hit stone. One after another, his guards followed suit. Tarly breathed out. Davos' shoulders eased. Balak's grin flashed. The drawbridge chain stilled. Overhead, seagulls wheeled, crying at the scent of warm bread forgotten in the ovens when alarm bells rang. The castle, unbreached since conquest, had changed hands without a single catapult stone flung. Within the hour, garrison troops were herded under watch to the East Bailey, stripped only of crossbows, allowed daggers for personal defense, promised quarter. Maesters stepped from dusty towers to tend minor cuts, shocked but cooperative when Davos cited ancient guest rights. Kitchens coughed into activity again, baking loaves anew. Archers replaced stag banners with sable-on-silver dragons that Aegon's standard-bearer had rolled like precious parchment inside his saddlebag. Aegon walked the ramparts alone, a pale wind tossing his hair. Below, the sea smashed itself into foam against rocky buttresses, spray leaping 100 feet. He pressed palms to the cool crenel, letting salt stings settle a sense of reality on his skin. Behind him, footfalls light and even. Lord Randall Tarly, the Reach warhorse, studied the boy prince a long moment before speaking. For 20 years I followed banners because they stood near, Tarly said. 4 kings wore crowns in that span, 2 by right, 2 by whim. None took Storm's End as you just did, nor without spilt blood. Aegon turned. Will my lack of blood mean I am weak, my lord? Tarly's gray eyes barely twitched. It means you win with the coin you spend. Mercy, some men will call it fortune. Others will call it sorcery. Either way, they will fear losing castles to a boy who swings no hammer. Fear bends knees faster than siege engine. I would rather they bend from faith than fear. Faith lasts till empty stomachs. Fear lasts longer. Tarly bowed head a fraction. But faith tastes sweeter. Feed them both. Misceptas. They fell to logistical talk. Garrison size, seed stocks, arrow fletch. How many barrels of pickled kraken remained? Legacy of Stannis' alliance with Ironborn cell sails. As they spoke, ravens rustled in wicker cages, couriers scribbled on parchment. Within hours, black wings were in the air, bearing dispatches to Connington, Fossaway, Rowan. To Sunspear through secret Gaston Grey Drop. To Old Town's starry sept. Even to Dragonstone, though none could guess who claimed that ruin now. By nightfall, Storm's End's tall drum torches blazed gold. The inner yard hosted a modest feast. Militia lentil stew thickened with fresh-caught mackerel, oat bread, crisp salsify sticks. No wine beyond 1 cask of Arbor White opened by Tarly for officers. The men drank small beer, yet songs lifted, low at first, then bolder. Old marcher tunes of thunder and salt, mingled with the Golden Company's brazen chorus. Beneath the gold, the bitter steel. Aegon listened from the dais, not eating, Connington's warning of restraint echoing. He allowed the men their release. They had seized a living legend. In the hall's lesser corner sat Davos beside Quick Nady, playing knucklebones with Balak's quartermaster. Each toss clattered like dice on fate's board. They wagered smoked splinters of herring and prisoner tokens. Small brass chits stamped with lion for each Lannister captive. Davos lost more than he won but laughed all the same. Toward midnight, Aegon withdrew to a narrow window embrasure that faced north, toward King's Landing. From here the night horizon showed nothing but distant lightning. Yet he imagined the capital trembling already at news. Blackwater bridge watchers glimpsing messenger birds. Tavern harlots repeating gossip, adding spice. Cersei's gaolers listening through sept door cracks. Margaery's ladies whispering of a silver prince stealing Storm's End, while the city chipped itself to pieces at Faith Militant's feet. But greater than King's Landing loomed a question of Highgarden. What would Mace Tyrell do when he learned his marched lord and breadbasket had bound swords to a dragon? And what of the Iron Throne's nominal master, Tommen, and his hand, Orton Merryweather, whose quill might sign death writs before breakfast? Aegon felt the weight of each possibility, as though links forging themselves about his neck. Sometime toward dawn he slept in a chair by the hearth, dreams swirling with echoes, dragon roars that were gull cries. A red priestess's laugh, Connington's ragged cough turned to sleet on stone. He woke to trumpet notes echoing beneath enormous vaulting. Morning watch signaling sighting of banners on southern approach. Rowan colors, Tarth, Morrigan, Estermont, and a half-burned standard of Selmy added to the tale. A small host formed hard on the news, yet with them rode a slim, hooded courier bearing orange sunburst on silver. Dorn Dog-D. The man was weary, horse-fumed. He knelt before Aegon in the outer ward while Rowan and Tarly looked on. "Princess Arianne sends her word," the envoy said, producing a parchment sealed with the Martell spear sun. "She hears whisper of a dragon reborn, and begs audience at her fair hold of the green blood within 10 days' sail. She speaks of debts written in fire and blood." His eyes flicked to the crown tucked in Aegon's belt. "She brings promise of the sand snake spears and the water garden's gold, should your grace's blood prove as crimson as rumored." Aegon broke the seal, scanned fluid Dornish script. Talk of Elias' children, of old oaths unfulfilled, of vengeance near ripened to justice. A closing line, written perhaps in hurried ink, chilled him. "The other dragon crosses Slaver's Bay on wings of storm. Choose whether she meets brother or rival." He folded the letter. "Tell your princess I will come in good faith with small retinue, once matters here are steadied." The envoy bowed, exhaustion visible, and was led to wine and rest. Aegon turned to Rowan and Tarly. "Dorne waits, but we must secure the Stormlands first. Griffin's roost must yield." Rowan nodded. "Prester's flight scattered lion cubs west of the Mander. They limp, strike now, they cannot rally." Tarly rapped gauntlet on parapet. "But Tyrell banners will wheel east if they see dragon colors in Thornhill Vineyards. I propose we send token force under my command south toward Rainhouse. Make noise enough to draw Macy's eye. Meanwhile, you march north to the roost. When Tyrell looks up, he will find he guarded wrong door." Meberstern. Plans hastened. By noon, columns filed from Storm's in through newly opened Kingsgate, fanning like spokes. Tarly's 1,000 heavy infantry south across Tide Flats. Rowan's lighter horse east to screen the Rose Road. Balak sell sails back to Wendwater Cove to Ferrystore. Aegon rode north at column head with 400 Golden Company spears, Duck's archers interspersed, and 2 trebuchets disassembled on wagons. A show of siege threat, though he hoped not to use them. Davos and Quick Nady co-commanded scouts. On the second day, they reached Griffin's Roost's outer ridge. The castle walls glared from the hilltop, banners of Sir Ronald Storm hanging stiff. The crowned stag black barred to denote bastardy, yet catapults, freshly set, angled outward like accusatory fingers. Sir Ronald had not been idle. Aegon ordered halt beyond trebuchet range. He raised a white flag, rode forward with 3 bodyguards. Beneath the walls he called, "Sir Ronald, Lord Connington, rightful lord of this house, sends parley, bring wine." His words drifted upward on wind carrying hawk cries. A creak, a voice thick with phlegm. "To what end should I trade words with oath-breaking Griffin and his dragon chick? So you may keep your seat when the realm rights itself." Laughter rattled battlements. Wooden hoardings bristled with crossbows. "I keep what Robert gave by strength, not paper promises," Sir Ronald shouted. "Go back to your sellsword kennel." One of Aegon's guards fingered bowstring, but Aegon raised hand. "You refuse safe talk. Very well. Yet I know your folk starve from failed harvest in last year's storms. I send bread tomorrow at dawn. Refuse that, you will have chosen who dies first." He wheeled away, heart hammering. Bread before blood, Connington's creed. If Sir Ronald's pride outweighed his hunger, siege lines would tighten. He returned to camp, penned letters, dispatched runners to Connington urging caution. Hold Storm's End lightly, spread grain north toward Weeping Town. Accept any swearings but bind them by hostages. Night fell cold. Fires burned low. Smoke trailing into sky dark as wet slate. Aegon lay awake in travel tent, listening to owls. Around midnight, soft crunch of foot over pine needle. He gripped dagger. A small figure slipped inside. Quick Nady. Her grin glimmered. Roost rats speak. She laid a coin purse on ground. Stag coins stamped with Baratheon crown. Garrison under Sir Ronald, not paid in months. 3 crossbow companies willing to open Sally postern for double wages and pardon. Want proof of coin and token of trust. Aegon eyed the purse. We give both. At pre-dawn hush, the token, his own signet ring, lesser of 2, passed to Nady. She and 2 scouts slid through wooded draw to castle foundations. At sunrise, as promised, wagons with bread basket approached under white cloth. Gates cracked to retrieve loaves. Minutes later, a patrol emerged, 10 men, cloaks hiding faces, leading a donkey cart loaded with rotten grain for barter. They reached the tree line where Natty awaited. Silver shone, nods exchanged. And swiftly, the 10 crossbows loosed bolts into the roost's outer wall guard before sprinting back. Dragging ropes hidden beneath donkey cart straw gate. Natty hauled. The ropes hissed. A weighted hook latched on inner gate beam. Raleigh Duck's archers yanked. The postern groaned open. Golden Company spears poured through like water from burst cask. Resistance inside was fierce but brief. Sir Ronald Storm, gout-swollen and brandishing a chipped longsword, was dragged from bed, still wearing nightshirt embroidered with prancing stags. His men, hungry and half unpaid, laid down arms the moment the Griffin banner unfurled above Citadel. By midday, Aegon sat in the high seat of Griffin's Roost's hall. Connington's seat, flanked by black feather banners of his own device. He refused Sir Ronald's knee, only to strike it with a mailed fist. No man kneels in my hall who calls my blood false. He forced the knight to sit, offered ale, set terms. Renounce claim, retain lands as vassal, send his 2 sons to Storm's End as pages. Sir Ronald, pale and sweating, agreed quick. Bread before blood. At sunset, thunderclouds massed. Aegon stood upon battlements looking south to Storm's End, its torches tiny glints across dark miles. Connington had sent Raven. Fever broken but weakness lingered. He would ride north soon to see his ancestral seat restored. Aegon smiled, imagining the reunion of man and stone. Then he thought of Dorne, of Princess Arianna's letter waiting under wine goblet. He pictured sailing the summer sea on a swift galley, warm sands, whispered vows of alliance sealed under lemon trees. Some said Dorne's spears toppled Daron the young dragon to spike castles. If such spears stood within, the Reach might bow without battle. But across the world, another Targaryen rode dragons to war. Daenerys Stormborn, breaker of chains, mother of monsters. Rumor placed her near Meereen, forging fragile peace. How would she greet a nephew she believed, dashed against walls as infant? He felt both dread and kin yearning. A horn sounded below, tearing him from reverie. A scout galloped into yard, cloak plastered with mud. Dispatch from the north, he cried. Bolton banners cross the Trident. They ride for Harrenhal under Lannister gold. Bolton, the traitor flayman who betrayed Robb Stark, linking with Lannister meant new front. Aegon rubbed temple. He must anticipate every reach of lion claws. He summoned council in hall lit by storm lanterns. Rowan, Tarly, Balak, Davos, Quick Nady, Tristan Rivers, even Sir Ronald under guard. Aegon mapped reality. North crippled under Bolton. Riverlands aflame, Westerlands licking wound after Red Wedding Daya. If Bolton marched south, Lannisters hoped to pin Reach and Stormlands between jaws. He must counter with hammer from Dorne and bolster from Vale. But Petyr Baelish held young Lord Robert, and the Eyrie perched aloof. Rowan offered to ride home and raise meadow pikes. Tarly promised ravens to Samwell at the wall for word of Stannis' plight. Balak wanted to raid as far as Crackclaw Point coastal villages. Davos argued to court Lord Hoster Tully's broken vassals, still holding river-run reeds. Aegon listened, then set sequence. Secure Stormland's breadline, send Rowan with token Golden Company to Bluff Keep and Horpa's Fang Tower, rally lesser Stormlords by marriage alliances. He would wed a reach daughter once throne steadied, but now he needed spousal talk only as lure. Connington would govern Griffin's Roost and Storm's End garrisons, guiding new recruits. Tarly to hold Storm's front. Harry Tyrell should he stir. Balak free to raid Lannister coast, but under oath to spare small folk grain. At council's end, Davos lingered. Your grace, a word. They stood by hearth where flames danced. I know duty draws you to Dorne, Davos said. But North cries louder than sand. Bolton flays children, Karstark feuds break villages, R'hllor's shadow war sows madness in winter snows. If you could save them, songs would outshine dragons. I would save all, Aegon answered. But I have one body, and war has 10 arms. Then choose the arm that lifts those most near collapse. Aegon nodded, mind churning. Dorne's alliance might wait weeks. Bolton threatened to march within days. And the Vale, sweet ground to air drooping northern banners, remained silent. Perhaps he could sail up Blackwater, march to Maidenpool, strike Bolton before Harrenhal. But that stretched supply lines thin. Connington arrived on the 3rd day, wrapped in gray cloak but standing tall enough that tears burned Aegon's lids. The old lord's blue eyes shone at first sight of his crest hammered again above gate. He climbed spiral stair unaided, laid hand on rampart stone, and wept quietly. Aegon pretended to watch horizons so tears need not shame his guardian. That evening, under brightening moon, they stood together reading Fresh Raven. Varys, the spider. Voice from shadows had written. Little birds sing of a new song in King's Landing. Queen Mother freed by sparrows, Tyrell roses clipped, lion cub mewing. Your gate stands wide if you but hurry with tidings of mercy. Yet recall, every song carries hidden stanza. Take care which tune you finish. Aegon turned to Connington. The city bleeds. It has bled before, Connington rasped. But if you mean to claim it while wounds still drip. Wait too long, and scabs turn to walls. Nemshal, we do not hold enough men. We hold honor and bread. Sometimes enough, sometimes not. Aegon's thoughts spun. Riding for King's Landing now might draw Tyrell and Bolton sets in chase, clashing behind him, choking road with war he could not supply. Yet linger, and someone else might seize city first. Stannis from the wall, Euron's Krakens, Daenerys by sea. He closed eyes, saw Daenerys dragons wheel around Red Keep, saw wildfire pits blossom, heard screams. He opened eyes, weight in chest. Send swift raven to Dornish envoy, he said. Tell Arianne I sail in 5 days, alone save small guard. No host, no threat. If she fears trap, she may set meeting on neutral sandbar at the mouth of the brimstone. Connington's brow lifted. Brave and risky. No more than any step in this dance. Aegon exhaled. While I sail, you will whisper North and Vale on my behalf. Davos may ride to White Harbor. Manderley hates Bolton. Rowan will keep breadlines. Tarly will bluff Tyrell. And Mace, we send him a gift. The charred bones of Lannister men who burned Haystack Hall, with note reading the dragon protects gardens when lions prowl. He prides his lemon tarts. Perhaps he'll taste that. Thus, over following days, Griffin's Roost became hive of quills. Scribes produced charters restoring lands to houses sundered by war. Quartermasters tallied spear shafts, salted pork, arrow flights. Maesters hooted over rookeries. Aegon toured villages burnt in Renly's campaigns, distributing seed grain, settling squabbles between fishermen and sellswards, promising coin for each new hull built on Wendwater. He watched children's eyes widen at his hair, and sometimes he lifted them to his saddle, so they might gaze down at broken world with princely vantage. Sly Asha Greyjoy arrived one fog morning aboard a battered longship she called the Black Swan. She carried letter from her brother Theon, confessor to kings, begging sanctuary. Aegon heard her out on Storm's End stone dock, sea spray fringing brows. She offered fleet aid if he recognized Iron Island's rights to raid the Westerlands unchecked. He refused plunder, but dangled trade monopolies once throne sat. Asha laughed, shook on it with salt-rough hand, sailed back north with promise to think. Thus alliances swirled like sea foam, some bright, some foul. Yet through it all, Connington's cough worsened. Maesters bled him, plastered mustard on back, whispered grayscale of lungs. He endured but shrank. On the eve of Aegon's departure for Dorne, they stood again on Storm's End highest drum. Wind-tearing cloaks, stars hard as fresh-forged nails. "You will sit the Iron Throne," Connington whispered. "But remember, the chair is stone and iron, not love. Keep hearts of small folk in loaf of bread, not promise of war." Then, Aegon nodded, throat tight. He clasped Connington's forearms. "Rest, my lord. Your part is carved in granite. I will carve mine in deeds." At sunrise, the prince boarded a sleek galley crewed by Balak's men and Rowan's mariners. Davos took helm again, wind filling Lateen's sails. The sea stretched calm, gulls wheeling. Behind lay Storm's End, its drum towers shrinking to stunted teeth, its new dragon banner snapping in salt wind. Ahead lay the Greenblood Delta, Sunspear spires, and Princess with sandfire in her eyes. As the ship cleared Cape, a messenger bird burst from horizon, beating wings ragged. It landed on the yardarm, scroll bound tight. Aegon unfurled. Fleet of black sails sighted east of Lies. 3 dragons on horizon. Stormborn sails for Westeros. "Prepare. Manansi." He stared at the ink until letters blurred. North wind stiffened, filling sails. He closed fist around parchment, feeling ocean spray sting cheeks like tears. The dragon had 3 heads, the prophecy said. One silver sailed now toward Dornish shore, one green-scaled perhaps already crossing summer sea, and the third, red as sunset, could yet rise in rebel heart of realm. Whether they met as siblings, or as storm collided with wildfire, the gods alone could script. But the prince named Aegon swore upon salt and stone he would stand, whether as brother, rival, or last candle against night. The galley's prow split foaming wave, gulls screamed, distant thunderheads brewed. Destiny at last gathered all its pieces upon the board.